Hey disciples, and welcome to Everyday Hope.
Your daily inspiration from the Word of God.
Always different. You just got sick of a cool way to say it.
No.
Well,
I'm
welcome.
good.
Sorry we missed yesterday. In fact, there's going to be a slight change to Everyday Hope. So we can give you guys the best, I was thinking about what we're going to call these, but the best episodes we can. We want to kind of narrow it down a little bit. And on the weekends, we do a lot of family-focused things, and we like the ability to be able to go to church Saturday and have volunteer time and things like that. So we're going to take Saturdays out, and that's really the only change. We'll still be here Monday, we'll still be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday Bible study, Friday Hope. But Saturdays we're going to take out so we have a little more flexibility in our weekend. Woo! And before we talk about today's message, I do want to tell you guys, if you haven't heard, there's an event tomorrow called Harvest America. So for you, or for anyone you know who is not a Christian or hasn't dedicated their lives to Jesus and made that commitment, this is a great opportunity to take them to this event. It is completely free. It is at the Cardinal Stadium, known as the University of Phoenix Stadium. And it will be tomorrow. Doors open at 2. The event starts at 4:30 and it ends by 7. There'll be music there from Trip Lee, Mercy Me, Need to Breathe, and Jordan Sparks. Is that her name? Right? Okay. And more. And then there's a message from Pastor Greg Laurie. And I've listened to some of his sermons. I was familiar with him before this, I'll be honest. But he preached a good message, and I believe in the way he preaches it. He has a sound doctrine from what I've heard, and so I think it's a great time for you to get there, recommit your life to Jesus, commit your life for the first time, or just be there to be able to support, pray over the event, and enjoy the message yourself. Again, completely free, doors open at 2, starts at 4:30, Cardinal Stadium, in downtown Glendale there, off of 101 and Glendale.
That's not downtown Glendale, by the way.
It's not Glendale? It's still Glendale, right?
It's still Glendale, but it's not downtown Glendale.
It's not like historic Glendale, but it's
called Westgate?
It's South Glendale.
It's Westgate.
It's Westgate. So, please invite people, spread it, invite everyone you can, even if you can't make it. Get the word out about the event. We want this to be as big as possible. I'm going to be there myself and praying over everybody there to be impacted by the message. It'll be really cool. But today, following up as we talk about some stories in the Bible, I want to talk about Daniel. And Daniel's another one of those stories you may have heard when you were a kid. We know it as Daniel in the Lion's Den. His story is a little longer than that, but that's what we know is that testament of faith in the lion's den. So let's back up and start at the beginning and see what we can learn from Daniel's life. So Daniel was a fairly educated man, and he was taken captive and prisoner, and so were some of his friends. His friends are also pretty famous themselves. It is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Hope I got all those right. And they have their own story for another time. But they were taken captive. And the Bible says that God was with them during this time of captivity. Actually, if you don't mind handing me that Bible right there. I really should prepare this. But there's one thing I thought of. I'm like, man, it'd be really cool to read you guys that verse. But to tell you guys a Harvest America while I look this up real quick. If anybody is old enough who's watching to remember the Billy Graham crusades, this reminds me a lot of that, so it's pretty cool to be able to reach so many people and to do it in a free way. And that's the biggest thing, is free, because nobody who doesn't know Jesus wants to pay to hear a message about something they don't care about, at that time. Alright, so to bring some of the Israelites, so he was taken to Babylon. That's where he was held captive. But Daniel determined, so at this time, when they were taken captive, they were offered to be in the king's presence, to eat at his table, and to drink wine. But Daniel and his friends, this is the first testament of Daniel, decided they would not defile themselves. And saying no to the king, just like we learned with Esther's story, that's like a certain death kind of thing. But God was with them, and he protected them in the situation. So it says in verse 9 in chapter 1, God had granted Daniel favor and compassion from the chief official. So God looked at compassion with Daniel, saying, as a Jew, as a Hebrew, you have these specific laws to not defile yourself with certain foods and with wine, and here you are holding true to my word in this test. So God was with them, and so he was able to refrain. And it says that eating no meat and only eating vegetables and fruits, they were actually more nourished than any of the king's men. So God had his testimony of saying, hey, they're doing what I want them to do. I'm going to bless what they're eating and make sure that they're given everything they need and more through it than you guys are with your, 3-course breakfast, 3-course lunch, 3-course dinner. So it shows God's faithfulness to Daniel and Daniel's faithfulness to God. So it goes on to say that Daniel and his friends, they were at the king's mercy, and so they were educated in the ways of Babylon to be of service to the king. It says God gave these 4 young men knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom. Daniel also understood visions and dreams of every kind. At the end of the times that the king had said to present them, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king interviewed them, and among all of them, no one was found equal to Daniel. So they began to serve in the king's court in every matter of wisdom and understanding that the king consulted them about. He found them 10 times better than all the divine priests and mediums in his entire kingdom. Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So right off the bat, Daniel's blessed for his faithfulness. He's staying obedient to God. Even in captivity, he's staying faithful to God in the hardest of times, and he's being blessed with knowledge. So the first lesson I want us to take away from Daniel is staying faithful to God. You may be faced with a situation that seems dire. It seems like the best thing to do to keep yourself safe, or to give a little to get a little kind of thing, to compromise, is to go with their way. But Daniel knows that there is no halfway with God, there is no compromise. He's going to remain fully faithful, even in the worst of circumstances. And in return, God showed his faithfulness to Daniel. So, let's take away. More faithful to God, we know God will be faithful back. And even his friends go on to say later on, God, and this is the greatest thing they say, we know that you can save us, we know you will save us, but even if you don't, our faith and trust is still in you. So Daniel has the same mindset as his friends. No matter what, God, whether I get through this, whether the king kills me for remaining faithful to you, my faith still holds in you. So, through his captivity, he's able to interpret the king's dreams, and he becomes very close to the king. The king tries to get him to worship false idols. They still refrain, and God shows faithfulness to protect Daniel and his friends. So Daniel becomes so close to the king, to jump ahead here, that the other officials become jealous of Daniel. And it says that through their jealousy, they looked for ways to charge Daniel and bring charges against him, but Daniel was a man of such integrity, they couldn't find any flaws or any charges to bring it up to him. They had him watched, followed. I mean, they dug into the very core of Daniel's life, but they couldn't find anything. It says, the administrators and satraps therefore kept trying to find charges against Daniel regarding the kingdom, but they could find no charges or corruption, for he was trustworthy and not negligent, or had any corruption found in him. Then these men said, we will never find any charges against this Daniel unless we find something against him concerning the law of his God. So Daniel's been found out. They realize that time and time again, Daniel will do his duties to the fullest extent of his abilities. He's a hard and loyal worker. And the only time he won't give it his all is if it compromises his belief in God. So they found what they thought was a weakness. They say, okay, here's what we can do. We have to put an ultimatum to say it's the king or it's God. So they go to the king and they go, King, you're so awesome and such just a great king that we should all praise and worship you. In fact, we should just have like a week where we just praise and worship you only. And anybody who doesn't praise and worship you in this week and does anything to praise and worship anything else, they should be killed because you're so awesome, you just deserve this week. And so the king, being talked up and praised by these men, is like, you know what? I've worked hard. Yeah, let's praise me this week.
Typical guy.
Let's just praise me and only me. And yeah, I'll sign this decree. Absolutely. Me only. And so it says this. So they got together, they told the king, may the king dare to live forever, all the administrators of the kingdom, the etc., different positions. You guys don't even know that particular. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not even a week. For 30 days, anyone who petitions any god or man, except for you, the king, will be going against this document, against this decree, and against the law, and will make this irrevocable so it can't be changed. So, this is where the story gets really interesting, and it's one of my favorite parts of the entire Bible. So, this part, honestly, will Daniel in the lion's den, as the famous story goes. So it says, when Daniel learned that the document had been signed, he went into his house. The window in his upper room opened towards Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, just as he always had, and gave thanks to God. Of course, the men in the group found out they'd been watching him, and they petitioned him for imploring his God, and so they approached the king and told him about this. So my favorite part is that it doesn't say Daniel hesitated, Daniel was worried, Daniel feared for his life. None of this comes up. It says that Daniel, and what I love is it doesn't say he just went and prayed. It specifically says Daniel learned about this document. He knew the decree was signed. So it's not like he was just like, oh, I'm going to go do what I always do. It's not like me and my morning coffee, like, you know, every morning at 4:30 a.m. you can find me at Circle K getting my coffee before I go to work. And, you know, he knew, without a doubt, he's not supposed to do this. He heard the decree, he understood it. It says, he knew, I am not supposed to pray to anybody or worship anybody except the king. But he didn't even hesitate, he didn't worry, he didn't fear. He went right up to his house, and here's the best part. He probably could have stayed downstairs in a closed-off room with no windows, no doors, and prayed in private facing Jerusalem. But he didn't do that. It says he went upstairs to the open window facing the city, all the city to see, and prayed towards Jerusalem as he had always done before. So not only did he not care about their decree, not only did he not fear it, but he blatantly went out in the open in front of everybody and praised God as he had always done for everybody to see him. He knew punishment was coming. He knew what he was doing, but he had full faith in God, and God had always been faithful to him. So, there he is. And now these guys, they think they've won, right? They think this is done, game over. King, guess what? Daniel worshiped his God. We wrote the decree, we wrote it so it couldn't be changed, and in that time a king couldn't change his own decree. He would look weak, the people would rebel against him, nevertheless he just wasn't allowed to do it. He, as a king, had to answer to lower officials, just like the president has a board, same concept, so he can't change it. And in the book of Daniel, you see that the king is very fond of Daniel. They have a friendship and a bond. So, as we read further, the king isn't happy to throw Daniel in the lion's den and have him killed. He's literally just he's torn inside. He hates that he has to do this. He hates that this has happened. He realized that this decree was really just set up to destroy Daniel. So, again, Daniel prayed as he did before. The king answered, as a law of the Medes and Persians, the order stands and is irrevocable. Then they replied, Daniel, one of the Judean exiles, has ignored you, the king, and etiquette you sign, for he prays 3 times a day. As soon as the king heard this, he was very displeased. He set his mind on rescuing Daniel and made every effort until sundown to deliver him. Again, this is his best friend. The king, he's in a highly elected and selfish position. He's a selfish man, and he doesn't want to admit how close he is to Daniel, but they both know the bond they share. This is his best friend. And maybe he wouldn't say that, but that's what we can definitely get that from the context. So he tries everything he can to try to find a loophole for Daniel. He's just unable to do so. So then these men went to the king and said to him, you as king know it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no etiquette or ordinance the king establishes can be changed. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, before the door closed, you just picture the doors closing, and the king shouts one last thing to Daniel. May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet ring, and then the signet rings of the nobles, so that nothing in regard to Daniel could be changed. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he reached the den, he cried out in anguish. So the king's just broken over this. Anguish is such a strong word. That's not just saddened. That's not just upset. He's in anguish. He's like broken over this. So at first light the king gets there, he reaches the den, he cries out in anguish to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God. So he acknowledges the living God. The king said, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? Then Daniel spoke with the king, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths. They haven't hurt me, for I was found innocent before him. Also, I have not committed a crime against you, my king. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to take Daniel out of the lion's den. So Daniel was taken out of the den uninjured, for he trusted in his God. The king then gave his command, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den. They, their children, and their wives, they had not reached the bottom of the den before the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then the king Darius wrote to those of every people, nation, and language who live in all the earth, may your prosperity abound. I issue a decree that in all my royal dominion people must tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is a living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his dominion has no end. He rescues and delivers. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth, for he has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus, the Persian. So this is kind of the beginning of how the Hebrew people, the Israelites, how they kind of leave captivity, how they're able to get out of captivity and be able to return to their land. That's kind of what's building on this. I forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe the book of Daniel takes place right around the same time as Nehemiah when they go back to build the walls. And God's definitely delivering them. But let's look at what we learned from this. Alright? First things first. No man is stronger than his prayer life. That comes from Leonard Ravenhill, Amazing Pastor. And I believe that with all my heart to be true. No man is bigger than his prayer life. Daniel knew that. Daniel spent, it says, 3 times a day in prayer. I'm sure it wasn't just 3 times a day, but he was dedicated to praying 3 times a day minimal. Morning, afternoon, and night. He knew that was going to happen no matter what. If he had other times to praise God, he would. He was dedicated to his prayer life. He was also, and I want to make sure I word this in a good way for you guys, but he was committed to his relationship and faithfulness with God. Now, something that God brought to me earlier, and it's this. faith and worry cannot coexist. One has to outweigh the other. And you have to decide in your heart in concrete and put it in stone which it's going to be for you. Are you going to let worry overwhelm your life, or are you going to choose faith? You can't worry about your bills and have faith in God. You either trust that He's going to deliver you and have faith in that, or you worry and try to work things out with your own means. In this house, we choose faith in God. And it's been hard at times. And sometimes I feel my scale start tipping towards worry. But when that happens, I get in His Word. I read stories like Daniel for encouragement. I pray for encouragement to God, and I pray for a stronger faith. And God delivers on that promise. Prayer and faith go hand in hand. So, just like Daniel, let's let our faith outweigh our worry. It says he read the decree. He knew it. And he didn't even hesitate to go pray as he had done. His faith far outweighed his worry. He was strong in his faith. And even when he brought to the lion's den, and whenever we see it in movies and TV shows, I feel like they always make Daniel out to be so worried, such a wimp about it. But when I read this context, it doesn't say anything about Daniel trembling or crying out or in tears. He doesn't sound upset to me. He sounds like he is resolved. I think that's the best word to use for it, is he has resolved that whole situation. He's accepted this situation. He's accepted the decree of the king. But he has resolved that it's not going to change his faithfulness to God, despite the consequences. So when I think of it like The Green Mile. If you guys ever saw that movie, it's a great movie. Has a great Christian undertone to it. Do not recommend it for kids, though, because it does deal with the death penalty. But he has this resolve when he walks to the electric chair to be killed, and he knows that it's his end, but he's done God's work. I feel like Daniel has the same kind of resolve. Like he's walking to the lion's den, he said, you know what? I wouldn't have done it any differently. I prayed to God faithfully, and even knowing my punishment for that, it wouldn't have changed what I did. I'll take the punishment.
One thing I heard about the story of Daniel is that majority of his prayers were gratitude prayers. He always was thanking God for the things he had in his life. And even when he was in the lion's den, he didn't pray so much as a please help save me. He just said thank you. Another gratitude prayer saying thank you for the life he's lived and everything else like that. And so I think that shows a lot of strength too, is, instead of getting stuck on God help me with this, help me do that, praying, the reminder of praying in thanks.
Yeah, and let's just throw something at you guys and try to follow with me here. But basically, Jesus told a parable about a Pharisee. He was like, thank you, I'm not like other sinners, this and that, and he kind of praised and was all self-centered in his prayers. And it says the tax collector wouldn't even lift his head to heaven, and he just said, have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. And I feel like Daniel had that outward focused prayer life where he was thankful and he would be gracious and have gratitude towards God. And he didn't have any of those self-centered prayers like a lot of us have, even myself included, where I'm like, God, help me with this, get me through this, bless my family, and I'm always just looking out for me and my circle, And I think we need to have that Daniel focus life where we're thankful and we have gratitude to God for what we have, and then we're also looking for God to work through us to help others, but not for ourselves.
Right.
And so he had this resolve. He goes in there, and in my mind, and what I feel in my heart from the Spirit is that he wasn't worried. He just said, God, this is all to your plan. You hold me in your hands. Have your way with it. That's what I picture Daniel being like, And God being faithful took Daniel's situation where Daniel could never have foreseen this. It goes back to, we always say God has a plan for us that we can't see. It's bigger than us. It's better than our plans for ourselves. And so Daniel, never in a million years, would think, God's thrown me in the lion's den to work through me. He's probably like, God's faithful to me no matter what, even in death, God's faithful. But here comes God, right? He sends his angel down to Daniel. He closes the mouths of the lions. He says, your faithfulness has been a reward to you. God has been faithful to you for your faithfulness to him. He saves Daniel from the lions. This is bigger than Daniel, because now God has shown his power through Daniel, through his circumstances, that many others may be blessed and brought to God for it. Because what do we read right after Daniel comes out of the lion's den? We read that King Darius wrote to every people of every nation that this is the living God. The God of Daniel lives. His kingdom endures forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed. He has no end. He performs signs and wonders, and in heaven and on earth, he has rescued Daniel from an impossible situation. So through this impossible circumstance, through this dire, terrible thing, in this dire moment, what do we see? We see God deliver, God perform a miracle, and save his faithful servant, and use him in a way bigger than he could have ever imagined. Daniel's the right hand of the king, and he thinks he's elevated as high as he could possibly be, and been blessed as much as he can be. And then God does something eternal with his life. A story that's been told for generations up until now. A story of faithfulness. And it was something that stretched to all the people of every nation during that time. So what do we take away? Let your faith overcome your worry. It can't coexist. Let your faith be stronger. Be faithful to God in every situation, especially the dire ones. And when things seem the worst, that may be when God shines the brightest and uses you the most. Don't lose that faith, and don't let worry take control. And remember that no man is bigger than his prayer life. So important. Pray often. Try the Daniel prayer plan. We call that in our church, in our house, the Daniel prayer life, morning, afternoon, and night. Dedicate yourself to that. More is great. More is amazing. But be dedicated to at least those 3 times. If you want to face Jerusalem, it's actually, you don't have to face Jerusalem. But be dedicated to that prayer life. Let your faith outweigh your fear. That's the takeaway here, guys. As always, thanks for joining us. I really hope you enjoyed the message as much as I do. I just love the book of Daniel before it gets weird with all the visions of the future. Might be over some of your heads, but some of you guys know what I'm talking about. But as always, never lose hope.
You don't know. Tomorrow maybe.
And get to church tomorrow, or Harvest Fest. I didn't think about it.